Hi, my name's Kristjan Zadziuk. I'm an animation director in the video games industry. I'm currently animation director of Ubisoft Toronto, and I've been in the industry for about 16, 17 years. So I've seen quite a lot of gameplay showreels, and I wanted to try something a little different. I wanted to try and give people out there that wanted to understand what animation directors in the games industry are actually looking for in gameplay reels. We get asked this question all the time, so I decided I wanted to try and find a way to explain my process, at least anyway. This isn't expressing the views of my employer, this isn't saying that this is the way that everyone does it, this is just the way that I like to look at things. And Aiden has very kindly agreed to let me review his gameplay showreel. I had a lot of fun doing it, and hopefully he finds the feedback useful, and you may find the feedback useful as well. Okay, so without further ado, I think let's get started. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll start with these first shots here. Okay, so I like what you've done with it, with the two characters next to each other, basically showing like a combat move. But if you were to use this in the terms of gameplay, then you need to make sure that you're always serving the player. Yes, it needs to look aesthetically good, but you also need to make sure that it responds and feels good as well. Right, so the problem you've got with this is the animation. It hangs, and it hangs on the kick. And the problem is with that now is it doesn't feel like a light attack, and also doesn't feel like a heavy attack. So whereas a heavy attack would be about 15 frames from the point of pressing the button, and a light attack would probably be around about 7 frames. Problem is this is kind of caught in the middle of both of them. So if you were to have, like, let's say for example you were to push the button here, so then you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and at that point that should be where it's kind of hitting, making contact for a light attack. But you're going 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So at 12 you're kind of hitting there, and then a lot happens in that one frame. So what I might do is, if this was being implemented as gameplay and you wanted to have these synced animations as well, is this guy here, you know, like maybe his first pose, because we can kind of blend to that, maybe his first pose is kind of like almost like an anticipation thing. So instead of it just being up right there, we could maybe even cheat a little bit. So then what we have is that, so once we get that first point of contact, it's like it's already like that, right? So then you've got this line of action which then takes like down through, but he kind of just rocks it and rolls it off. So you've got a lot of movement there. Then he falls over. So if we kind of to play back through this, see, the fundamental animation is actually okay, especially because I think it's quite stylized. I actually quite like it. I especially like the rigs that you use. It's nice and simple, so it shows what your intentions are very, very easily. But what I would do, again, if we're looking closely at the animation, then got this nice quick turn on the foot, and then I would try and whip this head round maybe a little bit quicker. So you're really whipping that head round, then the shoulders come round, and then instead of holding that leg there static for a couple of frames, which you are there, I would probably take 3, maybe even 4 frames off that, and then really have that swing go around it, and maybe even hold that leg up there so you can kind of see some of the line of action, because this line of action now is basically taking it down through. So I think we'll be able to see it better from maybe another shot. So let's skip through. So this one, I think you'll be able to see it quite well. So you see, you've got a lot of. See, we want to try and have the weight transfer there, and I kind of like what you've done with the hyperextension of the leg. I think the problem is because you're holding it there for a lot of frames, it doesn't work as hyperextension. And then what I would also do is I would probably look at bringing this weight more over this leg, so I would bring this further back here, right? So then when we're stepping through it, let's see, so because you get this nice whip, but then it stops, and then you can see it's like the weight goes forward but then it comes back, whereas I would try and keep that weight over the center point So keep your center of gravity. You see over this foot, see everything's leaning over this leg here. I would try and keep it here. And that way you'll get a nice clean action, especially with the spin move. You don't want to have spin moves with the head moving around all over the place, because if it starts moving all over the place, then it becomes really hard to understand what's actually going on with the movement, and it starts to become actually quite noisy. So by keeping that center point, that center line through there, it keeps everything nice and clean and actually makes your action a lot more readable. As you see there, you've got the weight going through, and then he goes back, and that settles actually quite nice. I really do like that. And this rig really highlights how good that settle is. But then if you're imagining if this was gameplay as well, then what we probably have is as soon as that foot hits the ground, we can probably press the button again and go into the next move. You know, or then what we would also have is this, if this was a combo attack, is then bam, the leg would come, and then maybe we want to quickly get that leg down, so then maybe we can go in for like a Superman punch or something like that. So you're always looking for spots when you can try and interrupt the animation and get back to like the next move and basically give control to the player. Because the way my philosophy with gameplay animation is, if you're going to take control away from the player, make sure it's worth it. So, you know, like you're taking control away from the player, let's go through how long the animation is. So you push the button. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, point of contact, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And the foot still hasn't come and hit the floor yet. 18, 19, 20, 21. So it's around about 21 the foot hits the floor, which then you could have a nice kind of quick, maybe left foot forward, maybe he's kind of ready to do the next punch. You know, it's like, because you've got the weight over that leg there, and that's actually a nice strong position. It's interesting because this looks like you can actually maybe throw a punch, but then, you know, like if you're swinging with that right leg, then you're probably going to throw something with the left anyway, just because you're going to swap those weights around. So that's 21 frames roundabout that you've taken control away from the player. So just try and be mindful of what type of attack you want it to be. If you want it to be a light attack, try and make things happen quite quickly. Try not to have too much anticipation on it as well. It's very easy to make sure you don't actually need a huge amount of anticipation if the action is nice and readable. If the action is readable, like if you have a nice kind of line, like a sword kind of going through this way, then you don't need a huge amount of lead in. You don't need to be doing any sort of swing. It actually works just as well. And then when it comes to this hit, it does kind of work with it because you are bringing that leg down. But then what would happen is you could maybe sell that a little bit more, because he gets hit and then goes down and to the left, down and to the left, down to the left, but then he comes back up, right? So then what I might do is, if you wanted to have that kind of down and up, is there have that go down and then up, but then have the arms go a bit floppier. Maybe kind of have the arms go back, maybe have the head loll back a little bit, maybe you have some kind of, I don't know, some knockout shake or something. And then don't have the arms, see, because he falls very casually, which looks kind of funny, I suppose, and I do kind of like it. But I think that if you've knocked him out, I think he would lollop around a lot more than that. So definitely have some in the torso, so kind of have the head go down, like, you know, have the torso go and then have the head kind of follow it with a bit of secondary motion afterwards, and then have these hips come down to the floor a little bit earlier as well. And then again you could have some, see, instead of having it hit there and then slide, you could probably skip this part here completely by just making the hips go to the floor. So we see that now if we go back through it. This is probably the best angle actually. you can see that. You see it lasts as there's lots of little individual parts, whereas to me I think you could smooth those lines out and smooth those transitions between those parts, and it would make this move actually work a lot better. It's actually very, very close. It's not huge, it's not that far away from being a very good move. All the biomechanics are there, you just need to adjust your weight a little bit as well. And then you can see how high this leg comes out. So this is actually a good angle to look at the line of action. You've got some motion blur on it there. I would probably actually recommend that if you're doing a gameplay reel is you remove the motion blur. It's like, I like the rigs you've got, and I like the 3 camera angles you've got to try and show it. It's a good way of saying that you've got no place to hide, and I really like that, and I encourage you to do that more. But what you have done is you've put motion blur on the foot, and because it's moving so quick, I can't really tell what's going on with that leg and whether the animation on it works. You know, you're unlikely to get motion blur if you have this in game, so you don't want to hide it that way here as well. Sick, you've really brought that. I love the hyperextension. I just don't hold the hyperextension. And then try and bring this foot down. You know, not as much weight over this leg here, but you know, pull this back a little bit, and then that will actually make it easier for you to put that foot down as well. And then really kind of swing those shoulders around. He's ready to go again. You know, like anticipate another punch. And then the cool thing about if you anticipate the other punch with this move here, then you can very easily lead on to that next punch, and then you've already got some built-in anticipation. So that's a good way of adding anticipation without actually having anticipation. And I kind of like how you had him look down at the character. That's kind of cool, but we could probably do that systemically as well. So if you were having a fight and you wanted to do that, we could probably add like a look at system on a layer, and then we could really like make it go down to that. So you don't necessarily need to show that, but I do like what you've done. Another way you could do this is you could actually show, instead of having 3 full screens, what I might recommend you do is almost do it as like 3 viewports. So you could have like top left here, you could have maybe the kind of the side view, then maybe this top right here, you could maybe have like a perspective view, or maybe this like have a big perspective view here, you know, and then you could have like other 3, you know, other views here, and then I really like the fact that you can go back and then maybe repeat it a couple of times. So instead of trying to do 3 full screen repeats, you could have 3 repeats, but then have it all on screen at once. So then what you can do is when people are reviewing your reel, then they can actually see each individual kind of frame and how it refers to it. And then, you know, it's like, you don't have to put a frame counter or anything like that on there. I don't think that's necessary. But certainly doing something along those lines with the viewports, I think is going to help. So let's continue on. So you see what you've done here with the 2 viewports? This is exactly what I'm talking about. I think that this is what I really like, and I like what you've really done with, you know, you've made the main character, you've made this guy here, you've made that focus, you know, like, and then you've made the background unfocused. So it basically means that you're focusing on the actual animation. I really like that. You know, like, what I might do is I might change the color of the character, the render, just so he stands out a little bit more, but I don't think that's that necessary. But the cool thing that you've done, whether you realise you've done it or not, is by adding these tiles on the floor, it really shows the speed of how your character is moving through the world. And you've actually got some nice weight on this as well. You see, I really like what you've done there. Unfortunately, in this shot, it kind of hides it a little bit, so maybe I would actually add a 3rd viewport. So you've got your side view, and then you've got this view, or maybe even swing the camera around a little bit to maybe around the other side, so you can actually see more of it that way. I think that it would probably be a more interesting angle that way as well, because you're actually hiding it here. You know, this is really nice. I like how you're bringing this foot through, gently bringing it down. There's some nice kind of weight going through that as well. You know, like, let's see, and then actually, yeah, it's kind of nice because you've got like 4 loops, so let's go back through it. That's kind of cool. I like what you've done, that you've kept it on screen long enough for people like me to kind of analyze it, which is cool. You know, like, That's nice. One thing I would say is maybe kind of bring that toe up so there's a little bit of flop, like a little flip flop, like flap almost. It kind of goes, like brings it down like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. And this hand could probably maybe do with some more interesting posing as well. You know, because you see it's very static with the fingers there. I would try and like loosen it up a little bit, and I think by loosening it up that might work. Also, when it comes to gameplay, I've noticed here, and this is kind of interesting, is if you have a third-person game, chances are you're going to be seeing the back of the character quite a lot. So you want to make sure that that is very interesting. You want to try and avoid having square shoulders too much. So maybe try and loosen those shoulders up a little bit. I really like this rig actually. I can see how it would serve you very, very well. It's a very simple rig and just kind of shows the shapes very nicely. You've got some nice movement on the arms actually here, so I wouldn't even change that. And I really like the kind of the pushing forward. And again, you see how you've kept the head very central with not too much movement. It's like it's really nice because then it starts to look quite sneaky. So I would just basically move the camera around here a little bit, but overall I love what you've done with this, and I would apply this theory to the previous shot as well. Yeah, it's really nice. Good job. Okay, so then we come to your main shot. So this takes up the rest of your reel. So let's see. Well, let's play it through first, and then let's see what I see. So you got to jump over like a help move there, and jumps down. You wait for the other guy. So this is kind of more of a cinematic sequence. It kind of seems. So first thing, you know, in terms of if this was to be put into game, it's understanding where the parts are going to be. Is this like multiple systems? Like, you know, if you've got like a system here that's helping him down, then is this like a traversal system? You know, then it's kind of cool because it looks like it's almost like a little gameplay sketch. And by gameplay sketch I mean that it's like it's multiple systems kind of connected together to show a real kind of intention. We call them like FGFs, or fake game footage. And the more I look at it, the more I like what you've done. So you can see it's showing like a traversal here. Let's maybe go back to the other shot. I think it's a better way of seeing it. Let's see, maybe is it this shot? Yeah, this shot is probably going to be the best one to highlight it. So you've got like a traversal here. So it's kind of, so there you'd be obviously seeing it running, and then you've connected it to like a jump over, and then the hang, and then as she hangs, or he, then gets caught and then lands. So that'd be one. That'd be that system. Then she climbs down. Then he kind of traverses up. So there's lots of things going on here. And then there's a slide down system, and then a little help thing there, and a nice swing. So as pieces go, I like it. I think that maybe identifying that it's multiple systems going together may actually serve you better. And then maybe, you know, you could kind of show this one sequence together, and then maybe you could split up those individual parts. So, and then show them, instead of repeatedly showing this scene, maybe you show this scene like twice, and then you could break down those individual parts. It adds, I think, a lot more to your reel if you do it that way, because it shows that you're thinking of things in terms of systems. And as far as gameplay goes, that works really, really well. Because then in here you've got your run loops, you've got your traversals, you've got your jump overs, you've got your kind of your hangs and everything. So then this is more about just making the animation look good. So what I'll do is I'm not actually going to comment a huge amount on the animation, because I could probably spend quite a bit of time on just this scene. But I really like that idea of kind of splitting things up. I think it'll work quite well. So, you know, so main comments really would be from animation would be bit more weight there, so a bit more swing, and then really kind of come down. You know, like maybe make them a little bit more readable as well, you see, because she kind of falls there, and then she hangs a little bit. And I think that what you could probably do is just have that continue to go down, then she lets go. And, you know, maybe even make sure that these guys have made contact before she lets go. Because especially if that guy's there, he's there to help her. So instead of like her hanging in the air and dropping a little bit, maybe just make sure that they have contact, and then as they have contact, then she can let go. And I think that would actually work better as a move. And then that's kind of nice, and then you can maybe have him lower her down a little bit more, and then the landing, obviously a bit more weight to that. And then let's focus on this area here. Something I always tell my animators as well is just be wary of the knees and the ankle. What I would probably do is maybe pivot this round a little bit, so you've got this knee round there, because otherwise it looks a bit duck feet, and that doesn't feel very comfortable, doesn't look very comfortable, and the pose doesn't work that well. Whereas if you have that pivot round, that would actually make that move a lot easier, and would lead into this move. This move here would actually be a lot easier to do as well. And again, make sure you've got the weight on there. There's a nice swing, I'd maybe have him swing over a little bit more, and then have this hand be the last hand to leave, so it's almost like she's kind of hanging there, then falls down. And waits there. Then we're in another system, we're kind of back into a traversal system. So then she would go over to the thing, and then basically maybe even anticipate that. It's like, so hold her hand out as if she's like ready and waiting. Just do that a little bit more, and then it's like, just make sure she reaches out, really stretch out, really push that pose as much as you can, and then that'll be nice. She'll take the momentum through the swing, and then let's see what we can see from this angle as well. Let's just play through it. So see, it's some nice. You've got some decent blocking there. You've got some really nice blocking, and then I would just make sure that you make things just a little bit more readable. So just kind of push the poses a little bit more, and then really bring them down. And then let's focus on the guy a little bit now. So again, you know, maybe have him kind of stop. Maybe have him brace himself against the bar or something as well. Might be quite. I mean, it would certainly help as well if you broke down these and actually had reference for it as well, if you can do that. And if you do have that, it's also worth showing that in some of your reel as well, to kind of show your progression, and it shows your process. I love seeing how people think about this stuff. I love to see people's process. So if you were to show me that you had reference there, then you had your blocking there, then you had these individual systems, and if you showed me how you were thinking, I'd be like, right, this guy's good. I know how he's working stuff out. And that makes you a lot less of a risk when you end up getting hired, because you can see you clearly have this thought process. Okay, so we've got the guy running. Okay, that's cool. So I really like what you've done with kind of. It looks like he's running over the wall and using that. I really like that. I would actually highlight that a little bit more and maybe push up on that arm a little bit just so I can see it. Let's see if I can see it in a different shot. I think this one you'll actually see it better, because it feels nice, you know, like if you were to use, it's a kind of a unique move as well, because you're traversing over something next to a wall. Ah, you don't do it. Ah, that's a shame. I thought you did it. But either way, the traversal looks it looks nice. I like the swing over you've got. If we're looking up here, I like the swing over you've got. Oh, you do it. There you go. Yeah, you touch the wall, and you kind of use the wall as like as a brace. And then really, when you're landing, make sure you extend everything out, and then maybe even have those arms up a little bit, and then you really kind of push that pose, because then when you land, you kind of land, and then you're going to slide. Because you see the fact that he's not really looking where he's going there, so I would start to anticipate that, because again, you've probably got like a traversal there, and then if this was a system, then maybe you'd have a split point there, then it goes to a fall, then it goes to the slide, and then you have like an entry into the slide. And it's kind of cool, and maybe have him just go no, you know, like as in he's trying to slow himself down with his feet a little bit. And then, you know, like maybe still have him lean back. Don't have him lean too far forward there because it looks like he's going to fall. I would have him leaning, you know, like have some of the weight probably a little bit further back and then push off, maybe a little bit earlier. And then if we're going to have that, I'd have him go down a bit more there and then really emphasise that swing. So you get this swing coming through here, and extend that left arm out, this left arm there. Bring that weight and really, and then maybe even have him hop over there so he kind of gets the end. But then you could maybe even have him connect to another system like a ledge hang system or something like that. Basically, I could see the potential in this. I would just try and make sure that it looks more like systems, but you've also got to try and blur those lines, which you kind of have done here. But thinking about it in terms of multiple systems is definitely going to help you. So let's see if there's anything else. There you go. So overall, it's a good reel. It's a little short, if I'm honest. I would think that, you know, like maybe but you've actually got quite a lot in there. So then maybe I think that by splitting up and maybe showing it in different ways would actually maybe extend your reel. I like to see reels normally about a minute and a half long. It seems a very arbitrary number, but usually you can see some good stuff. But obviously, don't fill it with just filler. You've got some good pieces there. I'd like to maybe see like some more weight transfer in there, and maybe even another combat move. Maybe even instead of just one combat move, maybe kind of showing 1, 2, 3, maybe like a 3-hit combo or something along those lines might kind of work. And that again is very simple. I like the fact that you've got like the sneaking walk in there as well. I think that works well, and I do like the fact that you've got this sequence at the end. And I think that if you were to focus a little bit more on that, and instead of having it such a long shot, then you could actually split those parts up, and I think that would work really, really well. So anyway, hopefully you find those comments useful. This has been really interesting for me to have a look at, and I hope to do more of these. So take care, and speak soon.